All right, here we go. Happy Friday, y'all. Happy Friday. Hello, all my fellow tree huggers out there. I hope you all are having a great Friday. It is the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. And in addition to that, tonight is the eve of Earth Day. Now, if you've been with my channel for a long time, you know that I always do some kind of Earth Day special. Now, in years past, I've talked about things like permaculture, and last year I showed you how to plant a tree. So to happen to, it fell my live stream fell the day before Earth Day. I thought, you know what, I'll just go ahead and do it on the live stream. So let's give people a couple minutes for notifications to get out. And if anybody wants to watch ads, always do appreciate that. If you're brand new to the channel, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy anything that you see tonight, please consider giving me a thumbs up. It really does help us out. And if you would like to let me know if you're new to the channel, you can drop it in chat. You can drop it in comments. I always have just a couple rules here. You're always free to disagree with me, throw shade at me either in the chat or in the comments. If you're watching this on replay, either is fine. I don't mind if you disagree with me. Just be respectful to my mods. And I don't have any guests tonight. Although I do, that's another rule for my channel, is that always be kind to my guests. That being said, if anybody is extremely hateful, my mods have full permission to put somebody in timeout or whatever else they need to do. We don't usually have a problem here today, but you never know. And so we just like to throw that out. All right. So let's just start right into the topic. I was going to talk a little bit about some other stuff first, but I think we're just going to go ahead and get into it. I see a couple people already in chat. Celine, always good to see you, my friend. Now, Celine, I don't know if you saw it on my story on Instagram. I asked AI to show me what Boston would look like if we got into a war, and it was a pretty scary picture. You should check that out. It's on my stories. And Penny Pinching Prepper, I'm glad your move went good and that you're getting settled. Good to hear that. And Lazarus Long, appreciate you. I'm assuming that my audio is good. I'm not seeing anybody say anything there. JLM, thank you for joining us. Dove Season, good to see you. All right, so what I am going to talk about tonight is basically some small things that everyday people such as me and you can do these are not so much like that it's going to necessarily save the planet, but it is good things to do. And most of this stuff I think the prepping community is kind of into anyways, or at least a lot of it you already are. What I'm not going to do is sit here and lecture people and say, how dare you? I'm not going to do that. In fact, I think that people are kind of dug in. If we do talk a little bit about climate change tonight, people are kind of dug in in their corners, and I don't really see the point of arguing about it anymore. You may come at it from the angle of that climate change is cyclical, and to some extent it is. You may come at it from the idea that humans have worsened the climate change. And personally, I believe that's true, but I'm not going to ram my opinion down your throat. That's not what this is about at all. This is just like general, like let's say that we weren't even dealing with like any of these issues with worsening tornadoes or worsening hurricanes, things like that. These are just generally good things to do as a good steward for your property, your neighborhood, your community. And yes, they will actually have a beneficial impact on the earth. All right. So let's leave our politics at the door and get into some good discussion here about, what are some things that the prepping community can do. That's also some of the stuff actually will help increase your self-sufficiency and independence too. So first one, I do think the prepping community is really good about this one, and that's reduce, reuse, recycle, right? So like a lot of channels, and actually Penny Pinching Prepper, who's here in the chat, has really great content about like reusing and repurposing stuff like that. He took a back scratcher and like turned that into like this extendable spork for like eating MREs and stuff like that. And so I think in general, our community and homesteading communities too are really good about repurposing things. I am a big fan of when we go to the stores, we try to remember to bring our cloth bags. just it cuts down on, like, over the course of our lifetime, maybe like a small tree might actually not have to be cut down because of that. And definitely because we live on the ocean, we want to cut down on the plastic, because if you just walk around the city here, there's litter all over the place. Like, even when I go into the trails, like deep in the woods, I find like plastics and things like that, and that stuff never breaks down, or it takes really long time to break down. And unfortunately for us, like, because we're so close to the ocean and we live at sea level, a lot of that stuff does end up in the ocean. And both Mrs. Sarge and myself are big fans of sea turtles, which is kind of like one of our native species around here. There's actually a sea turtle hospital, and we've gone to visit the sea turtle hospital many, many times, and we've donated to the sea turtle hospital. The number one thing that animals are getting brought into the sea turtle hospital for is because, like, plastic bags and plastic straws are getting stuck in their noses or in their mouth, and they choke on them. And it's a really terrible thing. So anytime we can reduce the amount of plastic that's ending up in the ocean is good. What are some other ways that you can do this? I'm a big fan of reusing water bottles. That's not to say that I don't have some plastic water bottles, like disposable water. Of course I do. I'm a prepper. Like, all preppers have that. But for my day-to-day water consumption, pretty much I'm using like one of these Nalgene's, or sometimes a clean canteen. Sometimes I put coffee in my clean canteen. It just kind of cuts down on the amount of stuff that's ending up in the ocean and in landfills in terms of that kind of stuff. But again, I'm not one of these people who says like, "Ooh, you should never buy plastic water bottles." We stack them because it's just one of the ways that we store safe water for the times when the water could get shut off, or they may say the water is not safe to drink. Yes, there's other ways to purify, but most of the time, like, if it's going to be a day or two that your water source is not going to be safe to drink, people are going to want to have some water bottles. The most important thing to do is, if you do use those, make sure they're not ending up in the ocean. Like, recycle them or repurpose them or whatever you want to do with it. Cloth towels instead of paper towels. This is something I've gotten a little bit better at over the years. Is if when I'm cleaning, when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning up a little spill, I don't automatically reach for the paper towel. We've got a good supply of like hand towels and things like that. I'll use that to clean up, and then it just goes into the pile to get washed once a week. And just a little bit more environmentally friendly than always using a paper towel for that kind of stuff. Let's see. I see some chat popping in here. Angie, Spokane Stacker, Lee, good to see you all. Danielle, you liked that thumbnail? Just reading your comments here, guys. Yeah, definitely chime in, Danielle. Anything you want to add to this discussion, I appreciate it. Yeah, when there's and Celine, that happens here sometimes when there's like hurricanes and things like that. The filtration system, if the grid goes down around here, which it does usually at least a couple times a year because of where I live, when the grid goes down, they can say, hey, the water's not safe to drink anymore. Now, you still could probably use that for some other things, obviously flushing the toilets, probably okay for taking a shower in most cases, things like that, watering your garden and your plants and things like that, but it's may not be safe for human consumption. So as preppers, we always recommend that people have some kind of ways to purify water anyways. But I also personally, I think it's a good idea to stack some that's already ready to go, just for the sheer convenience of it. I always have a couple stacks of water bottles, the plastic disposable ones, and I rotate them. And sometimes I drive around in the city and I give them to homeless people, that because we have a lot of homeless people here in my community. So we're not I don't generally like to give cash to those people in those situations, because I know from the work that I do, a lot of them are struggling with addictions. But I'm happy to buy somebody a meal. I'm happy to give some water bottles or some fruit or things like that. Bacon. That's great. Well done. Well done. All right. I will say I don't like this next one. I'm a bad Earth citizen for this one. I do not like double-sided print. I cannot stand double-sided print. And I know that it's extra paper being used, but I do try to minimize the amount of paper that I have to print now. And I much more fond of like doing things electronically and things like that. But I cannot stand double-sided print. It's just like it because it bleeds through. I mean, maybe if I bought like better paper, but like right now I'm doing single-sided print for my notes, and like just the paper that's underneath, let alone the other side of it, is bleeding through, and I can see it. Sorry, I yeah. I mean, I could probably tone down the ink of my laser jet, maybe, and maybe I wouldn't do that. I don't know. I don't like to use double-sided print. What do you like to do, guys? We talked about cloth napkins, cloth dish towels, glass jars. Yeah. So we made this switch a couple of years ago. We got rid of a lot of our plastic stuff and switched to glass jars for leftovers and things like that, and also for like when I dehydrate stuff from the garden. That can go into glass jars and stores for a very long time. So we kind of did away with a lot of our plastic, like the old-fashioned Tupperware things like that. And did I just see a news story recently that like Tupperware is actually in trouble? The company's like, financially in trouble. Rechargeable batteries instead of disposable ones. Kind of depends on the equipment that you're using. Some equipment doesn't do well with those rechargeable batteries, so you have to be aware of that. Read your directions when you get a device. Like some of the flashlights I have do have specific rechargeable batteries that have to be used with those. Other ones recommend that you not use rechargeable batteries, so just be aware of it. But we do use a lot of rechargeable batteries in our household, especially when we know hurricanes are coming and stuff. We charge those up. We tend to use those first before we start going into our other batteries. Donating old clothes and furniture, old electronics instead of throwing them away. Like definitely like when it's time to get rid of your laptops and your phones and things like that. A lot of that stuff is made with rare earth minerals, which when we say rare earth, like it really is, there's a limited supply of a lot of that stuff that our electronics are made with. And so when you bring it to like a transfer station or a recycle station, or you turn it into Apple or whatever, they can repurpose that stuff. They can get back some of those rare earth metals and use them again. And also, like, when you bring your clothes to Goodwill or you bring your furniture or something to like one of those type of places, that may be the difference for somebody who really needs some decent clothes. I know a lot of the times with some of the patients that I've worked with in therapy that I'm helping them get ready for an interview for a job, and they don't have like a button down shirt, and all they can afford is to go to Goodwill. So remember that, like anytime you're donating like a nice dress up shirt, or for the ladies a business suit, like power suit or whatever, if you donate that, there's a pretty good chance you're helping somebody to get ready for an interview that really needs that and cannot afford to buy that stuff at the full price that they usually sell them for. So it's a really good thing to do. Good karma. Know your recycling guidelines. This is a huge problem in my area. Like people will throw all kinds of stuff in the recycling containers that doesn't belong in there, and it slows the system down, and it can contaminate stuff that could have been recycled if they didn't do that. So really make sure you know because every city is going to have different standards about that. There's certain things here I would like to recycle, but they won't take. So just kind of know what you can and can't put in there. Generally speaking, cardboard, aluminum, glass, some metals they won't take. A lot of plastics, like packaging from plastics, can be recycled. And like ours, you can't throw electronics in our recycling, but there's a place you can go to the transfer station and you can put it down, and then people can either pick through it or whatever. And then some people like Silver Scorpion actually will go and they can strip those down and take out like the platinum and things like that are in there and turn that into really cool artwork too. So sometimes it gets repurposed in those kind of ways too. All right. So that's reduce, reuse, recycle. And if you all have any other examples of how to do that, throw them in chat. Aloha. It's good to see you, Uncle. How are you? And let's see who else. Prepping by Faith. Good to see you, my friend. And y'all, if you have questions, throw them in caps. Penny pinching prepper. Yeah, definitely. You can get. I used to when a couple years ago. One of my side hustles was I used to sell used books on eBay, and I actually did pretty good with that. Ultimately I stopped doing it because it was just so hard for me to get back and forth to the post office. But you can, for those of you who need a little extra income too, check out thrift stores for that too. Like, everybody, we got to put bread on the table. We got to feed our families. We got to keep the electricity on. Times are tough for everybody. So, think outside the box. There's all kinds of ways that you can repurpose things and make a little bit of money at it too. Recycling, like a lot of places will give a pretty good amount for recycling aluminum and metals and scrap metals, things like that. Jody, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. All right, next one. Conserving water. This one really should be a big thing for anybody who's a homesteader or a prepper, right? So there is really, the water issue is huge. There is only a small amount of drinkable water on the planet, right? And it's going down. And like now we're seeing, they talked about this when I was a kid, that this would eventually happen. Now we're seeing it in some parts of the United States. Now, other parts of the world have struggled with this for a long time. The United States is now seeing it, especially in the Southwest area. My brother lives in Arizona, and there's a genuine water shortage issue going on. So simple things that you can do, like don't run the water, while you're brushing your teeth. Wet your toothbrush, put the toothpaste on, brush your teeth. Imagine if 330 million people did that. Like me alone doing that, it's a very small amount of savings. 330 million United States citizens did that. That's definitely going to make a difference. Fixing leaks as soon as you can, right? Like, so if you get a little leak, try to get on top of that as quick as you can. Even like those little drips in your faucet, which maybe is not adding up a lot on your bill, it is still using up a lot of water over time. Shorter showers. Oh, that's a hard one, right? That's a hard one. I love a nice hot warm shower. It's such a luxury. I really love that. But yeah, shorter showers, if you shorten it even by a couple minutes like that over the course of your life does cut down so much. Installing water efficient appliances. There's a great Seinfeld episode about that where they changed out everybody's shower head into like the low flow shower heads. But even if you have, like, if that's a restriction for where you live, look around for reviews, because there are low flow shower water heads that still generate a good amount of force. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. There was one that we used to use. I think it was called the Incredible Shower Power Head or something like that. And it was just this little tiny thing like that. But the way it was designed, it really did like a nice jet, like really hard, beat on your back kind of massage type shower. So there is good options for it. They're not all like a trickle down kind of shower. Water efficient appliances. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. When you're upgrading, right? Like, so if you're doing any home repairs or remodeling for your home, that's something you can look at. And most appliance places now will have that yellow sticker on there that says, like, this will save so many gallons of water over the course of a year and things like that. So you can take a look at that as part of your buying decisions and make your decision based on that, because it does save you a little bit of money too. Not only is it good for your water supply in your area, but it can save you a little bit of money. Water plants. This is a good one for preppers and homesteaders to know too. Water your plants early in the morning. Watering your plants in the middle of the day, a tremendous amount of water is lost to quick evaporation. Water in the middle of the day, and water in the morning. Water in the morning or evening after the sun is about, like when it's about to go down. The water will soak into the ground more, and so the plant is getting more of it, and less is evaporating up into the sky. This may not be legal in your area, but collecting rainwater in rain barrels is a great method, and that can be used. And actually, that's something that a lot of preppers think about. Like, hey, that's a great way to store some emergency water too. Now, you wouldn't want to necessarily drink that water right out of the rain barrel, and especially like if you have an asphalt roof, like you need to have like a really supreme water filtration system to take out the kind of minerals that are coming off of your asphalt shingles. But maybe you have a metal roof, and so it's not as bad. Or maybe you're not going to use that rain barrel water like that. You're going to use it to just water your plants, or you're going to use it to flush the toilet or things like that. So Rain barrels can be a really great idea. If you have a pool, we do not. If you have a pool, put a pool cover on when it's not in use. That actually helps to cut down on the evaporation as well. Check your chats here again. Some yes, Uncle. Some recycling is not getting done correctly, and some of it is not cost efficient. You're not wrong. Aluminum is very cost efficient, and depending on the community, paper and cardboard can be as well, and metal can be as well. But some of it is not. We know for a fact that some of the plastic that people are putting in our recycling is still ending up in the landfill. That's been like it was kind of like an undercover expose kind of thing, and so there is some truth to that. That not everything that you put in your recycling bin is going to end up in the in where it needs to be. Not everything you're putting in your recycling bin is going to get recycled. Cold War prepper, I love that. So like grass in general, right? So you know, as somebody who's more of like a permaculture style prepper, there really is very little point to even growing grass in your yard right now. Do we have grass in our yard? Yes, because we try to fit in with the rest of our neighbors. If it was up to me, then no, my front yard would be full of like edible plants and things like that. What I do is like as kind of a middle of the road compromise is I don't weed and feed on my lawn. I don't put those chemicals on my lawn, and I like to encourage those edible plants, those edible weeds. I don't water my lawn. And so there's, if you're going to have a lawn, there's still some ways that you can kind of be a little bit more friendly. But in general, like there's really, unless you needed some space for kids to play on, there's very little purpose for grass. Like it doesn't do anything except it looks kind of nice. Bacon, that's interesting about being able to turn it into fuel. I don't know very much about that. I would have to do some research, but thank you for telling me about that. There you go, Celine. So Celine says use takeout containers, repurpose those takeout containers for leftovers and meal prepping. That's a great idea. Stack gardening. So do you mean penny pinching prepper? Do you mean like vertical gardening when you say stack gardening? Is that the same thing? Wow, that's really cool, Lee. I'll have to check that out. So Lee says that there was a power plant that was basically running on trash in Germany. Yeah, it's a problem. The plastic use is a problem, y'all. And there is some plant-based plastic-like products that are being developed. I don't think that they've been able to get the cost efficiency to a place where that's workable yet, but that's in the works where there's like this it's plant-based plastic. And so in theory, if they can get the cost efficiency part of it worked out, it's much more sustainable. All right, moving on to number 3. Energy efficiency now. So as a child of the 70s and 80s, I can tell you that like, we would leave lights on all day long. And I know my dad would get mad and like, yell at us that like the electric bill was going to be high, but compared to what, what it is now, really by comparison, it really probably wasn't that big of a deal. Now, like we really are conscious of not leaving lights on when you're not in use. And even at work, like I try to, I'm one of the last people to leave, and so I usually like try to, when I know all the patients are out of our building, I start turning off lights and stuff like that because we don't need all those on if there's not anybody in those rooms. Just things like that. If nobody's watching TV, shut it off. And little things like that. When I a few years ago, when I was going through my divorce with my first wife, things got economically very, very tight for me for a while, and I had to like really skimp and live on bare bones budget for a while. And one of the things that I did was I basically went around my house and unplugged everything that I did not like, that I wasn't using. And I got my bill down to, and this was a pretty decent sized farmhouse. I got my bill down to like $35 a month just by like being really, really careful about my not having anything plugged in. So even like I usually leave my laptop plugged in right now because I'm not in that same financial situation, but there's a trickle of electricity even with my laptop closed. All of your appliances, everything you have in your house that's plugged in is drawing a little bit of electricity. So maybe go around your house, and if there's like a room that you don't use that much, or an appliance or a lamp that you use once a year or something like that, just go ahead and unplug those. It's not going to save you a ton of money, but a little bit. And over the course of your life, you are drawing less electricity. But like I said, and if you're really extreme with it, like I was, because I had to be, you can get your electric bill way, way down by just like really being super conservative. Like if I was in a room, the light goes on, and that would be the only light that I was using for that house. And that's kind of how I did it, and it worked out pretty good for me. I think most people at this point have switched to like more energy efficient bulbs, that kind of thing. But that's another option if you haven't done that yet, if you're still using the old ones. Some of them throw off like a weird funky light, and I get that some people don't like that. Try some different brands, some are better than others. I'm not real fond of like that yellowish light. I prefer like a whiter daylight light, but try some different stuff, see what works for you. Okay. So Uncle's saying it's the dye and the flame retardants that they're putting in the plastics that makes it hard to recycle. Thank you. Yeah, and Jody says phantom loads. So I didn't know that that's what it's called when you're leaving stuff plugged in all the time and you're not using it. Phantom loads. Yeah, and that's it, Bacon. It's I'm not in the business of like trying to say like, hey, do this to save the planet, and how dare you, I'm not going to stop flying. I'm not going to stop driving. But I'm willing to, yes, make some reasonable decisions in my life that will help my community, will help my local neighborhood, and maybe save me some money in the process, and make me a little bit more self sufficient in the process. But if we're going to get into that whole part of it, like honestly, I don't think enough people are going to change. I'm sorry. Like there's entire countries that don't care about whether or not this is an environmental issue, and they're not going to do it just because some environmental activist says that we should do it. We've got Kylie Jenner over in California who takes a private jet 40 minutes because she doesn't want to get in a car. She takes a private jet because she doesn't want to do a 40-minute car commute. Okay. So do you think that people like that are going to change? Right. And me, with my little, using my LED bulbs, and I'm competing with Kylie Jenner using private jet fuel every day. Like, don't come at me. Go talk to those people over there, because I'm doing what I can. I'm not causing the problem. So I'm not going to sit here and lecture anybody. That's not my style. Except maybe Kylie Jenner. I will lecture her. So support sustainable packaging, right? Like, there's some companies that do this. Wazoo Survival Gear uses very sustainable, minimalistic style packaging. I really like their packaging. Actually, you can. I've shown it in some of those videos if you want to check that out. And here is a big one for our community, for the prepping and homesteading community. It's about to do a mid-roll ads thing. I actually just got an alert. This is a new thing for live streams. So if you don't want to watch that, just click out of it when you get it. But it just told me that it's about to do it. Actually, I think it's going to let me skip it. Let me click this. So I just clicked that. That might actually have skipped it for all of you. I don't know. That's a new feature for YouTube. Planting trees. Planting trees. So if you're a homesteader, if you're a prepper, like there's a big benefit to planting your own fruit trees and fruit bushes and edible plants and gardening and just like, flowers that bring pollinators to your yard, things like that. That's very beneficial as well. So this is something that whether or not I had environmental concerns, I would be encouraging you go out and plant as many trees and bushes in your property that you can. If you rent but you have a little bit of space, you can grow some stuff on your balcony or in your window. I know that there's several people in the community who are doing indoor gardening, which is so cool. I really love what you all are doing with your hydroponic systems. Been watching your videos. It's so cool. I can't do that, unfortunately, because I have a cat that loves to eat indoor plants. So every time I've tried to do that, like it just gets chomped up. I have to be really, really careful, even with like my seedlings and stuff like that, to try to keep him out of where I'm growing that stuff. But yeah, planting trees. Guess what trees breathe? Trees breathe carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen. So hugely beneficial. And no matter how many trees I plant, I can't compete with like the destruction of the rainforest. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to take care of my little mini ecosystem that I have some control over, and some, not total control over. I have some control over my little mini ecosystem. So I encourage natural native plants that are edible and medicinal. I plant some stuff that like I've got tons of blueberry bushes. I've got some fruit trees growing, and plant a garden. All those things are really good. I'm just going to tie us into the next one here. Let me check your comments here. That's right. That's right. Prepping by faith. Exactly. Yeah, that's right, Uncle. Like, even if even if every person in the United States was like getting better about this stuff, it still doesn't change the fact that there's huge populations in other countries that are not gonna, they're not going to get on board. They're not. Like, that's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. Quick growing catnip. Yeah, Alpine Preparedness has some great indoor stuff. Um, yeah, all you're doing with your hydroponic systems, I'm really jealous of it. It looks really, really cool. Yep, you got it, Bacon. Celine, that's awesome. What are you growing this year? Coffee grounds, thank you. Yeah, coffee grounds. Instead of dumping them in the trash, your coffee grounds can go right into your garden. But the next thing I was gonna Oh, thanks, Bacon. I'll check that out. Appreciate it. The next thing that I was going to talk about is composting. Now, not everybody can compost. I get that. I totally understand that. I have a pretty small piece of property here. When I had my big property in Kentucky, my farm, I did a huge composting pile, and I had chicken scat, horse scat, scraps from the garden, coffee grounds, newspapers, like everything that I could, cardboard even, would go into this and like turn it. And then that next year, that would be my starter soil for my gardens. Composting is fantastic and takes a lot of stuff out of the landfills and gets the earthworms going. We need more earthworms too, just like we need more bees. We need more earthworms, so they love compost. And even if like, so I have a small acre here, I still do a little bit of composting. I do what I can. If you're an apartment prepper, maybe it's harder for you, but if you really want to do it, they sell like countertop composting contraptions too. I can't remember what they're called. They sell those as well. But coffee grounds straight into the garden. I used to take banana peels straight into the garden. You can do in permaculture. There's this thing called chop and drop. So when you're pruning and you're trimming your plants, as long as it's not diseased, you just let it go down to the ground. You can push it down a little bit into the dirt. It will break down. Now, hot compost, what is hot compost? So we probably should talk about this for a second. When you have a large amount of stuff, you shouldn't probably put that directly into your garden because it does generate a lot of heat as it's breaking down. That's why compost can get hot. So if you have a lot of compost, you want to make a pile and turn it, and you don't want to use it for like a full year, right? Maybe less than a year. I have done it with less than a year, but that's called hot compost. And you just keep turning it. You can wet it down with the hose. That's actually good too. That'll encourage the earthworms as well. But yeah, if you've got a lot of composting, don't put it straight into the garden. You'll actually burn your crops. Next one is this is a hard one to get people to buy into, but monocropping. So this is another concept from permaculture. And by the way, if you don't know what permaculture is, I would encourage you to learn a little bit about it. It's actually it's a better method than organic. It takes all of the components of organic growing and adds sustainability. So just because you hear something, you buy something that's like organic, it doesn't mean that it was created and grown in a sustainable fashion. Permaculture is. Permaculture has to, that's actually one of the main principles of permaculture, is that you're trying to be as sustainable as you can. So monocropping is a concept that where if you drive through the middle of the country, you're going to see miles and miles of one crop: corn, soy, tobacco. What are some of the other big ones that are grown? And we need a lot of that. I get it. Like I know we need a lot of corn and soy. I get that. But for those of us who are growing on like a homestead, monocropping is actually not good. The reason why it's not good, hang in there with me. I know some of you people are like, my grandfather taught me this. Okay, listen. Monocropping is not good because what happens is the pollinators get sick of eating the same food. If I said to you every day for the rest of your life, well, you're going to get to eat Cheerios and only Cheerios, right? Like I like Cheerios, but do I want to eat Cheerios every day for the rest of my life? No. And that's what you're doing with monocropping. You're saying, here, bees, eat corn. And that's all you get is corn. And it actually weakens them because they're not getting their full nutritional from a variety of pollen. This is possibly one of the contributing factors to colony collapse disorder. Not definitive, but possibly a contributing factor. Monocropping also tends to encourage diseases. So like if you grow corn in the same fields over and over and over again, you will unfortunately encourage not only diseases, but the type of pests that are attracted to that crop are going to start to learn, oh, there's corn here this year, there's going to be corn here next year. And so what do big farmers do to combat that? They spray it like crazy with chemicals, right? So this is how monocropping is, like, in general, is a very bad thing. It's a Western agriculture practice. If you study like how Native Americans grew, they would grow polycropping, which is crops together that work well together, right? So you probably have heard of the three sisters, which is squash, pole beans, and corn, right? Or maize. And so the corn grows up into a tall stalk. The pole beans will grow around that, and the squash grows on the ground, giving the ground some protection with like a cover, right? So that's an example of polycropping. Basil and herbs planted in between your tomato plants will actually help to discourage a lot of pests too, right? Marigolds planted around your garden will help to discourage a lot of pests, right? And rabbits don't like marigolds too. They don't like the smell of them, so it might actually keep the rabbits out of your garden as well. So polycropping, just kind of remember that if you have enough land to work with to plant stuff, don't go like a full acre of the same crop. Shake it up a little bit, put some other stuff in there, right? That's what you want to do. We can stop monocropping. All right, I got one more for you here, and then we'll start to wrap it up. Let me check your comments here again. If you're enjoying this at all, guys, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Yeah, blueberries do like acidic. So if your soil is alkaline, you definitely want to get some acidity to it, and you can do that. There actually is some organic supplements that you can add to. What's the name of the company? I use it. It's out in my garage right now. Jobs? Is it Jobs? I think Jobs. Jobes. if you look for organic blueberry acidifier on Amazon, the picture will come up, and then you can either get it through Amazon or you can find it usually at Lowe's or Home Depot or one of those garden stores. Yep, worms and composting. Make your own fertilizer. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Bacon, because there is a lot of misinformation out there about how, animals, pasture animals, like that we need to be cutting back on them. And permaculture doesn't agree with that. Permaculture says that we need we need a rotation of pasture animals, goats, chickens, cows, in periodically in with the where you're growing the other stuff to replenish the soil. That fertilizer is really, really good for the soil. And then that can be harvestable proteins for humans. Roman Prepper, good to see you, brother. All right. All right, last one. And this was one that I really do think most people would get behind anyways. Now you can't it's hard to do this all the time, but buying local does reduce carbon footprint because it doesn't have to travel to the product doesn't have to get travel to where it is. And it's just a good idea because Mrs. Sarge and I both own small businesses, and so therefore you should support your local businesses. It's a really good idea. No, it's a good idea because you are supporting local, your neighbors, you're supporting your community. Any money that you spend at a small business tends to get recycled within that same community 7 times. So, like if you go to buy baked goods from Mrs. Sarge, and then she takes that and she goes to the farmer's market and buys something, an ingredient, and then the farmer's market takes that and they go to the local hardware store and they buy some fertilizer for their farm, and then the owner from the hardware store finally he takes it to the bank, and then the bank pays their local employees, and then it gets moved back into the system. So it tends to get recycled several times before it actually gets like put back into the bigger system. So buy local when you can, pay with cash. Now we've done a lot of talk about this in some of my other videos that like that day is coming to an end. And you can say, oh, we're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. That day is coming to an end, my friends. And I don't like it any more than anybody else, but we will as a country be forced to move to a digital currency. That is coming. Nothing you and I in the YouTube community can do is going to stop that. But for the meantime, support your local businesses and pay with cash, because that cash does get moved around and it's really, really good. I can tell you as a person who owns a small business, and Mrs. Sarge owns her own separate small business, it helps a lot. Like it really does. So do that as much as you can. I know we can't buy everything small and local. I get that. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the comments one more time, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I really appreciate everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And again, if you enjoyed this at all, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you're not shy, let me know, down in comments or whatever who you are. I really like to know who the audience is, and if you have a channel yourself, I usually try to check out other people's channels as well. So let's check out the last little bit of chat here. Yeah, and so regarding like the whole vegetarian versus omnivore, that's another example where like my wife is a vegetarian. I've talked about this before, and I'm an omnivore, and we coexist. Like I don't have to shove my opinion down her throat, and she doesn't have to shove her opinion down my throat. We live together, we eat together, we can coexist. With the internet, it's like everybody's like, I gotta make the other person get my point of view, right? Or I'm offended by XYZ, right? It really doesn't have to be that way. When Mrs. Sarge told me, this was probably going back 2013, maybe, was when she switched to vegetarianism. And I asked her, I said, well, all right, I'm certainly not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to give you a hard time about it, but help me understand. Um, and I said, it's not necessarily a healthier thing. I know plenty of people who are vegetarians who ended up with like iron deficiency, creatine deficiency, things like that. And she said, no, that's not it. She said it for her. And this part I did get. She just loves animals so much that it was bothering her. And I totally understand that because I do too. I've told you guys before that like hunting is hard for me. I would do it in a survival situation. I have had to kill animals before. I don't like it. It's really hard for me, but I also get it. Like that's energy. That's an animal gives its life so that I can have steak, So I understand it from that point of view too. But I get the ethical dilemma, and we don't have to argue about it, right? Like if I want to have steak, I can sit there and I can eat steak in front of her, and she can do her linguine or whatever, she's into, and we just mutually respect each other about it. So if you're watching this and you're feeling like, you need to force meat eaters to stop eating meat, that's not going to work. Don't waste your time with that. Just, if somebody asks you a question like, why are you a vegetarian? Have a rational conversation with them and explain it to them. Maybe they buy into it. Maybe they don't. But you telling them that they can't eat meat because they're evil or something like that, I guarantee you're not going to convert a single person. Supporting your farmers markets. That's a great one, Roaming Prepper. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Yep. Yeah, and Lee says Lee hit on it. The reason why cash is better is if you pay me with your card, I can take payments that way, but I give up a portion of my profit that way too. Good to see you. God is great. Being respectful to each other. That's right. That's right. It can happen, right? Yeah. Good luck with your move, Roman Prepper. Bingus, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Is everybody else frozen, or was it just one person? Portobello mushrooms make a yeah, portobello mushrooms are good. And and I will say this, but going back to the vegetarian thing for a minute. Because my wife is a chef and because my wife is a vegetarian, I often eat what she's making, and I don't get like people's aversion to vegetables. I really don't. Like my wife's food is phenomenal. So, yeah, do I like steak? Heck yeah, I like steak. But when she makes one of her vegetarian plates, it's good, like really, really good. I don't get it when people are like, I hate vegetables. I mean, I guess you haven't had them the right way. I don't know. All right, looks like I'm all caught up. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. Let's wrap this one up. I want to say a couple last things. So again, if I came across as preachy tonight, just know that that's not my intention. I absolutely respect different viewpoints about this stuff, and my Earth Day content is definitely meant to be geared towards preppers and homesteaders in a way that like you can be beneficial to your own environment. You can be more self-sufficient. You can be healthier, like, so because some of the stuff is just cleaner anyways, right? It can be healthier. And I don't honestly believe that enough people in the world are going to change to make a dent in where all this stuff is going, right? So I'm not going to get on my platform and just sit here and lecture people. I don't really see the purpose of that anymore. Like there's all people are doing at that point is just like screaming at each other and how dare you. But I get that people are passionate about their stuff. I'm not going to do that. So I hope this was valuable in some way. I hope you got some new ideas for your little homestead or your apartment or whatever. I hope you got some new ideas out of this. And two more things. Many people don't know this, right? The number one contributor. Do you guys know who the biggest donor to conservationism is? Does anybody know? Put that in chat, and I'll wind this up, and then we'll finish with that. Who is the biggest donor to conservationism? And it's Let me answer it in a second. If you know it, put it in chat. you all know I love the environment. I love hiking. I love camping. I love nature. I love the forest. Really love the forest. I don't love the ocean as much, but I do go there for to recharge a little bit too. Um, but I love the forest and I love mountains. And when I go out to Arizona, I love the desert. And Earth Day is really, really cool. And it's not necessarily about like having to um, be lecturing other people about this stuff. Just go out and enjoy the planet. Go out and enjoy it, right? Get outside this weekend, especially if you've got good weather. Go out and appreciate like how beautiful this spaceship Earth really is. Because there's, even with all the sham and drudgery, right? Like as that poem says, with all of its sham and drudgery and all the darkness that's in the world, there's still a lot of beauty. And you should go out and you should recharge your mind with that. You should make that help you to recharge your heart and be more positive, because it will inspire you that there is still good things in the world, and there's reasons to fight for the world, and there's reasons to fight for other people and help other people, right? So get outside. Let's see if anyone got the answer to that right. No, it's not Exxon. That's it. Roaming Prepper got it. Roaming Prepper got it. It is, believe it or not, the biggest contributor to conservationism is hunters and fishermen. Look it up. So for everyone who is like, we need to stop eating meat, we need to stop eating meat. Okay, what if all the hunters and fishermen stop making contributions to conservationism? You're not making that money up. I promise you're not making that money up. So remember that, like, and most hunters that I know try to use as much of the animal as they can. They're very ethical, and they want to make sure it's a clean kill and it's a quick kill. And they are respectful with how they treat the animal. They thank the animal for feeding their family. And a lot of them donate. I know a ton of hunters who donate that food to shelters and things like that, so that the homeless can get proteins and things like that. So just everybody needs to calm down. Everybody needs to calm down, respect each other, right? Different viewpoints have value, right? And that's it. That's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful Earth Day this weekend. Thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate y'all. Don't forget, keep planting your seeds. Plant lots of seeds. Don't plant your seeds and stack in your silver. I will see you on Tuesday. I'm going to try to have another video out on Tuesday. Don't forget to check out Bacon's stream later on tonight on Friday. He usually does that late night stream. And have a great weekend, everybody.